Nobody was calling 1995 a golden year for sci-fi. But when you see what we've got in 2025, it starts looking a lot more impressive. Let's revisit some of the films from that year that are still worth watching. 12 years before American Gangster, Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe clashed on screen in Virtuosity. Denzel plays a former cop pulled out of prison to stop a virtual killer who's just become real. That killer? Russell Crowe as SID 6.7, an unstable AI built from the personalities of history's most infamous murderers, including Manson, Bundy, and Gacy. The film's vision of virtual reality looks dated now, sure, but in 1995, this stuff was cutting edge. There's even a scene with glass regeneration that feels like a weird warm-up for The Matrix. Washington is solid, as always, but Crowe goes completely unhinged, and it's glorious. This isn't a perfect movie, but it's bold, bizarre, and way more fun than most of what gets greenlit today. Directed by Kathryn Bigelow, Strange Days drops us into the final hours of 1999, in a version of Los Angeles that looks more like a war zone than a city. Ralph Fiennes plays Lenny Nero, a former cop-turned black market dealer in clips, memories and sensations recorded straight from someone's brain and played back like a VR drug. Things spiral when Lenny receives a clip showing a brutal crime. What follows is part murder mystery, part sci-fi noir, and part full-on social collapse. The tech may be fictional, but it feels disturbingly close to real, especially with how immersive VR and surveillance have become since the 90s. Fiennes is both pathetic and magnetic as Lenny, but Angela Bassett steals every scene as Mace, his armored limo driver and moral anchor. And Juliette Lewis, playing Lenny's reckless ex, adds just the right amount of chaos. Bigelow directs it all with raw energy, pulling from real-life unrest in LA and giving the film a sense of anger that never lets up. Not just one of the best sci-fi films of the 90s, 12 Monkeys is one of the greatest sci-fi films ever made. Directed by Terry Gilliam and loosely based on the French experimental short La Jetée, it's a masterclass in time travel storytelling, paranoia, and retro-futurist world-building. Bruce Willis plays James Cole, a convict from a devastated future, sent back in time to stop the spread of a deadly virus. Brad Pitt, in one of his most unhinged early roles, plays Jeffrey Goins, a rich kid anarchist with possible ties to the apocalyptic army of the 12 Monkeys. The cinematography is disorienting. The production design is pure Gilliam, full of weird angles, mechanical junk, and industrial decay. But beneath the chaos is a surprisingly emotional story about fate, memory, and inevitability. It's a rare remake that not only honors the original, but expands on it in bold, unexpected ways. Even 30 years later, few sci-fi films come close. This one definitely falls into the so bad it's good category, and that's exactly why it's worth watching. Based on the underground comic, Tank Girl sticks to the chaotic energy of the source material, but turns it into a full-blown cinematic mess, a glorious neon-colored kangaroo-filled mess. Lori Petty plays the title character with manic energy, constantly bouncing between cartoonish rebellion and weirdly sincere heroism. The editing is pure sensory overload. Fast cuts, animated inserts, loud everything. And yes, those kangaroo-human hybrids, they're real, and they're just as baffling as they sound. Naomi Watts shows up too, almost unrecognizable as the awkward sidekick Jet Girl, in one of the oddest pairings of the decade. The movie flopped hard, and studio meddling didn't help. But in its own trashy, post-apocalyptic way, Tank Girl feels like a comic book movie made before Hollywood knew what to do with comic books. And there's something oddly admirable about that. A mad scientist who can't dream kidnaps children to steal theirs. That's the setup. But The City of Lost Children isn't really about plot. It's about mood, texture, and pure visual overload. Part steampunk fairy tale, part dark sci-fi fever dream, It feels like something pulled from the back of your subconscious. The world is packed with strange details: cloned henchmen, one-eyed cultists, surreal machinery, and cities that look like they're rotting from the inside out. It's grimy, theatrical, and unlike anything else from that decade. Ron Perlman plays a silent circus strongman on a quest to rescue his kidnapped brother, helped by a tough orphan girl. But the deeper they go, the blurrier everything becomes: memories, dreams, even identity itself. It's messy, confusing, and sometimes impossible to follow, but it's also one of the most visually original movies of the 90s. Most people know it as the movie that inspired The Matrix, but Ghost in the Shell stands on its own as one of the most influential cyberpunk films ever made. Set in a hyper-connected future, it follows a cyborg government agent tracking a mysterious hacker known as the Puppet Master. But the deeper the investigation goes, the more it becomes a reflection on identity, memory, and what it actually means to be alive in a digital world. The questions it raises about consciousness, free will, and artificial life still feel just as relevant today. And visually, it's stunning. Neon cities, mechanical bodies, glitchy dream logic. The influence on science fiction since then is impossible to miss. Powder is a strange mix of science fiction, teen drama, and spiritual allegory. It follows a reclusive young man with albinism and unusual powers, including control over electricity and a deep sensitivity to human emotion. After a life spent in hiding, he's brought into the outside world where his differences quickly make him a target. The film leans heavily into symbolism and moral messaging, sometimes to a fault. It paints its main character as a near-mythic figure, which can feel a bit much. But beneath the sentimentality, there's an oddly sincere story about fear, isolation, and how people react to what they don't understand. It sits somewhere between science fiction and horror. Based on a Philip K. Dick story, Screamers delivers a bleak, paranoid future where machines designed for war have evolved and now kill anything that moves, including each other. It was made on a tight budget and failed in theaters, but somehow it works. The setting is grim, the tone is tense, and the core idea taps straight into the fear of losing control over our own technology. The film's strength isn't jump scares or gore, it's the growing suspicion that no one and nothing can be trusted. That creeping dread is what gives Screamers its staying power. Another entry in the so bad it's good category. Johnny Mnemonic had all the ingredients for success. A story by William Gibson, Keanu Reeves fresh off Speed, and a big studio budget. Instead, it bombed and became something way more fun than expected. Set in the high-tech future of 2021, it follows a data courier who stores sensitive info in his brain. This time he's carrying the cure for a digital plague, but he has to survive long enough to deliver it, while dodging Yakuza killers, cybernetic weirdos, and a street preacher assassin. The cast is wild, the tone is all over the place, and the most famous scene involves Keanu screaming about room service from a trash pile. None of it makes sense, and that's exactly why it works.